3.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dear Ibu Anggani and dear all my friends, we are from Group 1. We would like to present correlational designs. I am Ajar Setiawan with my friends Mas Fadila Yonata, Mbak Ratih Laili, and Mbak Aprilian Riyadisti. Next. In this presentation, we have 6 points of discussion. The first, definition, purpose, and the use of correlational designs. Second, how correlational research developed. Third, types and key characteristics of correlational designs. Fourth, potential issues in conducting correlational designs. Fifth, steps in conducting a correlational study. And sixth, evaluating correlational study. But after we present about the evaluating, we would like to show some articles related to correlational study. Next. We go to the first part, that is definition. As stated by Creswell in 2012, a correlation is a statistical test to determine the tendency or pattern for two or more variables or two sets of data to vary consistently. Next. Purpose. The purpose of correlational study is done by the investigators to use the correlation statistical test to describe and measure the degree of association or relationship between two or more variables or sets of scores. Next. The use of correlational study is to examine the relationship between two or more variables, and then it is also to predict an outcome, covary, use one variable to predict the score on one variable using knowledge about the other variable. But here we have the main point that statistic that expresses linear relationship is the product moment correlation coefficient. Next. All right, the next is about how correlation design developed. Here we have the development of correlational design started from 1970s and 1980s. Computers give the ability to statistically control variables and do multiple regression. Yeah, here is the last development, by considering from the previous startings. And the next is about the type that will be presented by Mbak Aprilian Adisti.
Okay, thank you very much, Mas Anja. So actually, I would like to continue for the presentation. In for correlation designs, there are two types of correlation designs. The first, we have explanatory design, and then the second one is the prediction design. So that will be, I will break down one by one. The first from explanatory design. There are the characteristic of explanatory design for correlation, this type. The investigator correlate two or more variables, so they report the correlation statistical tests and mention the use of multiple variables. So the reader find these variables specifically mentioned in the purpose statement and the research questions or the tables reporting the statistical procedures. The researchers collect the data at one point in time. So the evidence for this procedure will be found in the administration of instruments in one sitting to students. And in explanatory correlation research, the investigator are not interested in either past or future performance or participants. And the investigator analyze all participants as a single group The researcher collects score from only one group and does not divide the group into categories or factors. Okay. And the researcher obtains at least 2 scores for each individual in the groups. And the researcher reports the use of correlation statistical tests or an extension of it in the data analysis. And finally, the researcher makes interpretation or draw conclusions from the statistical test result. Okay, next please. Okay, this is the second types of correlational design. This is the prediction design. So actually, the author typically include the word prediction in the title. So it may also be in the purpose statement or research questions. And the researchers typically measure the predictor variable at one point in time and the criterion variable at the later point in time, and the author forecasts future performance. So it means they usually state this intent in the purpose statement or in the research questions. In the justification of the research problems, writer also mentioned their intent to predict some outcome. Next, please. Okay, there are key characteristics of correlation designs. So the first, we talk about display of scores, and then association of between scores, and the last is multiple variable analysis. And for display of scores, we have scatter plots and metrics. For scatter plots, actually, researcher plot scores for two variables on the graph to provide a visual picture of the form of the score. So this allows researcher to identify the type of association among variables and locate extreme scores. Okay, and then for metrics, correlational research typically display correlation coefficient in a metric. A correlation metric present a visual display or of the correlation coefficients for all variables in a study. So in this display, we list all variables on both a horizontal row and vertical column in the table. And then relates to association between scores, we have direction, form, and also the strength. And then for direction, we have positive and also negative correlations. So a positive correlation, uh, for example, when X increases, so Y also increases. So it can be concluded as positive. And then for negative correlation, when X increases, so Y decreases. So we can say that this is negative correlation. Okay, and then for form, we have four shapes or four types of form. The first is positive linear relationship, and then negative linear relationship, and uncorrelated and non-linear relationship, and the last one is a curvilinear distribution. And then for multiple variable analysis, we have partial correlation and multiple design. For partial correlation, in many research situations, we study 3, 4, or 5 variables as predictors of outcomes. So the type of variable called a mediating or intervening variable stands between the independent and dependent variable and influences both of them. And for multiple design, correlation research use the correlation statistic to predict future score. So to see what impact multiple variable have on outcome, researcher use regression analysis. Okay, next please. Yes. So here we have the example of display of scores in a scatter plot here. Here, the researcher wants to know, is there any correlation between hours of internet use per week and depression? So the result here show there is the positive correlation between hours of internet use per week and depression that can be seen from straight line to the right here. Jadi ada garis panjang ke kanan itu menunjukkan bahwa ini adalah positif. So it means that when X increases, so Y also increases. So when hours of internet use increases, so depression also increases. So it show positive. Okay. Next, please. Okay, so this is the examples display of scores in a correlation matrix. So here, the researcher wants to know the correlation from 6 variables, such as school satisfaction, extracurricular activities, friendship, self-esteem, pride in school, self-awareness, okay? And actually, for correlation is only show 2 variables. So here, for example, the correlation between extracurricular activities and school, sorry, back to the, okay, yes. The correlation between extracurricular activities and also school satisfaction. So the calculation show for R or calculation of correlation menunjukkan minus 0,33 ya. So it means that it indicates it has the correlation. So this interpretation can be seen from the association that I will present after this. Okay. Next, please. Next. Yes, okay. This is there are the association between two score. So for direction, it has positive or negative, and then for form, we have linear or non-linear, and then for degree and strength, it indicates size of coefficient. Next, please. Yes. Okay, we have the figure here, association between two scores, linear and non-linear patterns here. We have 3 types, yeah, positive linear, negative, and no correlation. So here, if the result of R tabelnya itu plus 0,75, okay, it is positive, and then negative and no correlation. So for -1 until 1, it indicates that this is linear. And then for 1 indicates strong linear, and 0 indicates no correlation. So in bahasa, I can say that semakin mendekati 0, semakin mendekati 0, maka semakin lemah korelasinya. Semakin mendekati 1, maka korelasinya akan semakin kuat. Begitu pula dengan sebaliknya. Seperti itu. Okay, next please. Okay, we have nonlinear patterns here. This is nonlinear patterns or curvilinear because the shape is like U, so it is called U shape, melengkung seperti huruf U ya. Jadi ini types of nonlinear patterns here. Next, please. Okay, and then for nonlinear association statistic, we can use, for example, for correlation coefficient for nonlinear ordinary data, we can use Spearman rule, and then for point Becerral, used to correlate continuous interval data with a dichotomous variable, and then for P coefficient, used to determine the degree of association when apa itu? The variable measure are dichotomous. Okay.
When both
Not very clear.
variable
When what variable
both
measures
variable,
are
yeah.
both, okay, when both variable measure are dichotomous, right, Mas Anjar?
Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
okay, next please. Okay, and this is also the association like what I have touched before. We can identify whether it has the correlation or not based on the result of the calculation of R, and then we can check on this table here. For example, 0.20 until 0.35. So when correlation range from that, so it's only a slight relationship. Okay, and then for others, you can read by yourself ya. Jadi range dari ini setelah kita mengkalkulasi hasil R-nya berapa, kemudian kita lihat dari association ini dia masuk ke kategori apa? Apakah relationship-nya bagus atau kurang bagus? Nah, bisa dilihat dari sini. Okay, next please. Okay, and this is for multiple variable analysis, partial correlations. Yeah, it's not really clear, but okay. Partial correlation used to determine extent to which a mediating variable influences both independent and dependent variables. So we have three kinds of variables here: independent variable, time on task, and then for dependent, what Mas Anjar? Dependent variable,
Dependent, we have achievement,
motivate. Oh,
Achievement.
Mas Anjar?
achievement,
Achievement, okay. And then for
motivation.
yes, and for mediating variable we have motivation. So jadi yang sudah saya jelaskan tadi, kalau mediating variable itu dia ada di tengah-tengah antara independent dan dependent. So motivation here stands between time on task and also achievement. So this is called mediating variable because it includes both variable between independent and also dependent variable. Okay, next please. Okay, the last is simple regressions. Yeah. Okay, to see what impact variable has an outcome, the researcher use regression analysis. Jadi dalam bahasa analisis regresi digunakan untuk melihat apakah ada pengaruh variabel tertentu terhadap sebuah hasil. So for example here, is there any correlation between hours of internet use per week and also the depression score? So based on these table or figures, yeah, it can show that there is the correlation between hours of internet use per week and depression score. Okay, that's all of my presentation. Go to the next, please, Mbak Ratih. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mbak Lia. So I will discuss ethical issues. When we talk about correlational designs, we have to deal with some problems that may occur or some points that we have to pay attention to. The first problem that may occur in correlational design is that the research doesn't include appropriate controls. The second, it doesn't have appropriate sample size. So maybe the researcher doesn't state clear number of the population. So he or she or the researcher cannot define how many samples that should be involved in the research. The third is the makeup of statistical data. It is very possible for researchers to make up the statistical data to get the wanted results. The fourth, it states cause effect instead of relationship. It is one thing that sometimes causes invalidity because when researchers use correlational design, the researcher should define or should describe the relationship between two variables instead of the cause effect of those two variables. It doesn't state significance testing, so the researcher doesn't state whether the relationship is significant or not. It plagiarizes or it copies another work. It doesn't report contradictory findings and it doesn't share data reports with others. Okay, next. Okay, there are some steps in conducting a correlational study. The first one is to determine if a correlational study best addresses the research problem. Second, identify the individuals in the study. Third, identify two or more measures for each individual in the study. The fourth, collect data and monitor potential threats. Fifth, analyze the data and represent the results. Sixth, interpret the result. And the last one is evaluating whether the size of the sample adequate for hypothesis testing. There are some points that we have to pay attention when we evaluate a correlation study. The first one is whether or not the sample is adequate for hypothesis testing. The second one, whether it displays the correlational results in a table or graph. The third, whether it uses appropriate statistical tests. The fourth, whether it interprets about the direction, forms, and magnitude of association, or whether the assessment of magnitude of association based on the coefficient of determination, p-values, effect size, or coefficient size. And we have to identify whether the predictor, uh, we have to identify the predictor and criterion variables. And the last one, in a visual model, we have to see whether the presentation of the relationship it is really based on the observed data. Okay, the next presenter, Mas Fadila Yonata, will present some examples of correlational study articles.
Okay, thank you very much. I will share the article. Okay, can you see all?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Clearly.
clear.
In this occasion, I'd like to give an example of correlational study. Yeah, you can see the title, The Impact of Writing Anxiety, Writing Achievement Motivation, and Writing Self-Efficacy on Writing Performance, a correlational study of Iraqi tertiary EFL learners. Yeah, it is written and published on 2019. Okay, from the abstract here, we can uh, see at glance. Yeah, in this study, the authors use three variables, which are they each of them are co-vary. Yeah, as stated by previous presenters, that in conducting a correlational study, we need to choose variables which are co-vary or related each other. Yeah. In this case, the author choose anxiety, self-efficacy, and achievement motivation in writing. So all of the variables are in writing. And then the purpose of the study you can see here to examine individual differences in hierarchy EFL learners. Yeah, writing anxiety, self-efficacy, writing achievement in EFL context. And yeah, the sample here is 100 undergrad students, and for the instruments they use 3 questionnaires and also one writing task. Yeah, we will explain it later. And then the findings. So here, yeah, uh, they only use a direction, yeah, direction point of view. It means they only just whether the correlation is positive and negative. Yeah, in this case, the results show that higher the higher the writing anxiety level, the poorer the writing performance, whereas the higher the writing self-efficacy and writing achievement motivation level, the better the writing performance. Or it can be said that writing self-efficacy and writing anxiety and writing achievement motivation were negatively correlated. Yeah, but writing self-efficacy and writing achievement motivation were significantly and positively correlated. So they only see from direction point of view. Yeah. Uh, let we discuss it more deeply. In introduction, the author starting by discussing about writing, and yeah, they use empirical reasons, yeah, by stating from several previous studies about uh, uh, study in writing. Yeah, they state here various studies have investigated writing with anxiety, motivation, and self-efficacy in ESL and EFL context. Yeah, there's so many previous studies here. However, to date, there is hardly any study in Arab world, especially with Iraqi students, which has examined writing with the three aforementioned factors in one single study. So this is the gap. Yeah. To fill this gap, the study focused on relationship between these three factors among Iraqi EFL undergrad learners. So this is the gap that they want to fill. And then the aims, yeah, as it is stated in the abstract, to identify the levels of writing anxiety, writing achievement motivation, writing self-efficacy, to examine writing performance, yeah, across those variables. Okay, uh, and then based on this purpose, uh, they they propose 6 hypotheses. Yeah, you can see here there are 6, and it will be tested in discussion part. Okay, we go to literature review. Uh, in this part, they explain about anxiety, about motivation, and also about self-efficacy. Yeah, and we okay, like this. Yeah, they just uh, they emphasize what the term that they use. Yeah, achievement here is achievement motivation is defined as individuals' desire to perform satisfactorily, to have an inner feeling or of personal achievement. Yeah, it is defined by alias. Yeah, sorry. Okay, maybe we can go to the method. Yeah, after explaining about theoretical frameworks, yeah, about achievement motivation, efficacy, and anxiety, uh, they go to methods. Yeah, the firstly they describe what research design they use. In this study, they clearly stated that they implement correlational design, and then uh, the purpose, yeah, to examine the interrelationship between writing anxiety, writing achievement motivation, and writing self-efficacy. Yeah, as it is stated by previous presenters, that uh, in correlational study, yeah, we need to describe and measure the degree of association or relationship, yeah, between two or more variables. Yeah, in this case, yeah, the variables are these three factors. And then uh, in collecting the data, they use uh, some instruments here, and the analysis uh, is using Likert type scale questionnaires, and also uh, what is that? Yeah, some from some theories, and writing task analysis. Yeah, and for the participation, they take 100 IRQ freshman students from the total 160 students. Yeah, when we see uh, the what is that, the requirement of a good correlational study, yeah, as stated by previous presenter, is uh, have adequate sample. Yeah, in this case, they use more than 15% of the total students. Yeah, they use 100% of 160 students. So it can be claimed that the study is credible enough. And then these are instruments for data collection. Yeah, they use questionnaires. They use 3 questionnaires here. Yeah, the first one from Chang questionnaire, and then the second one from Church questionnaire about student achievement motivation, and bottomly questionnaire for student self-perception, and the last one is writing tasks. Yeah, to know the writing performance. Use writing composition scale from Jacobs. Okay, I'm so sorry. My battery is running low. Okay, we continue our presentation. And then, yeah, here are the results. Yeah, from data analysis, the first time. Firstly, they describe descriptive statistic to identify the levels. Yeah, they use 3 levels here: low, moderate, and high. Yeah, you can see the levels of writing anxiety, writing achievement, motivation, and writing self-efficacy based on the questionnaire. Yeah, so these 4 tables are used to describe the descriptive statistic. Yeah, you can see. And then the second stage, they use one-way analysis of variance or NFA and the person product moment correlation coefficient. Yeah, to know the interrelationship among those 3 factors. And then, yeah, these are the findings. Yeah, as you can see the table for each of factors, the percentage. Uh, After that, they try to reveal the correlation of those 3 uh, on writing performance. Yeah, using ANOVA, and you can see here table 5. This one, table 6. In this case, they use display of scores in terms of metric. Yeah, in terms of metric. So they compare low anxiety with moderate and high, and then moderate with low and high with low and moderate. You can see here the mean. It is for multiple comparison. Yeah, to answer the first hypothesis, and the results show that it reject the hypothesis. Okay, and they do it. Yeah, this is the first one is for anxiety, and the second one is for achievement motivation, and until the third one is for descriptive of writing performance. Yeah, here. Okay, and the last one, they see interrelationship between writing anxiety, motivation, and self-efficacy. Yeah, in this case, they use here they adopt rule of thumb presented by Guilford. Yeah, and the results show that based on table 14, a very strong and positive relationship. Yeah, they're using Pearson product moment, correlation product moment, and it shows that between writing self-efficacy and writing achievement motivation, they have significant positive relationship. Yeah, you can see in the table here. So they use metric here, metric the length in the length of metric, yeah, not in the length of scatter plot. Yeah, here the factor achievement motivation and achievement motivation. Achievement with self-efficacy show positive, and achievement with anxiety show negative. Yeah, self-efficacy and achievement motivation show positive. Yeah, ini similar with in the above. And then self-efficacy and anxiety show negative here. So you can see in the table which correlation is negative and which correlation is positive. And we come to the discussion. Uh, the first theme that they discuss in this study is writing performance across the three levels. Yeah, based on the findings of the study, hierarchy EFL's undergrad students had a high level of anxiety in writing, which could tend to an unsatisfactory writing performance. So this is the relationship between anxiety and writing performance. And a high level of anxiety makes hierarchy EFL students avoid writing in the target language, and thus this could directly influence their writing performance. So this is the interpretation of the statistical result. And then further, the findings also indicate that the majority of RAKFL learners who were in the low category of achievement motivation are not willing to strive hard. So the result, yeah, of the statistical result can uh, can be uh, concluded as most of Iraqi students have low willingness, yeah, in terms of to study hard, yeah. And then the second discussion about interrelationship between writing anxiety, writing achievement motivation, and writing self-efficacy. The findings show that anxiety has a significant and negative relationship with self-efficacy. And then, moreover, writing anxiety and writing achievement motivation also have negative correlation with achievement motivation. And the last finding about a significant and positive relationship between self-efficacy and achievement motivation. So the study have a significance, yeah, that Iraqi teachers need to make their students interested in learning English because they would spend most of their time learning and improve their English. So the problem here is about students' anxiety in learning English, so that it can influence their writing performance. So we come to the conclusion here. Okay, and I think that's all from me, Mr. Anjar. And then, oh yeah, I forget to say that this kind of article is explanatory sample, yeah, explanatory study, yeah. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mas Fadil, for the clearly explanation. And thank you, Mbak Aprilia and Mbak Rati. Thank you so much. And here is the end of our presentation. And the next will be the discussion of question and answer session. All right. I think that's all for this time. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.